Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55.
All right, everybody, we are in for a deep conversation today. I'm really excited about this. My guest today is Stacy Kehren Idema of Global Collective. And we are going to talk about traits related to men and women in business and why we need to adapt certain ones. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
I know. Let's talk about you a little bit. Let's talk about your background and, how you fled corporate and why and what you're doing now.
Oh, well, corporate was supposed to be my path because I grew up both my parents were entrepreneurs. And so I spent a long beautiful 26 years. I learned a lot in corporate. And fleeting corporate world was really the choice to not go back. After the fourth layoff in 26 years, it was really about focusing on what I love to do. Because there were parts of corporate that were really, I bucked the system a lot, and it created a lot of conflict in me and with others around that fit better in the confines of corporate. So what I'm doing now.
How difficult, real quick, I'm just super curious, having parents who are entrepreneurs and then you taking the corporate route, how difficult was that? Because you saw the things that your parents did. And, as entrepreneurs, we can pivot and we can get creative. And in corporate, it's pretty rigid.
Because we sat at the kitchen table and talked about finances and vendors. And, it was back in the day where it was the phone that would sit on the desk. And so it would ring during dinner. And that constant feeling of having to satisfy everyone else's needs. For me to go into corporate, it was almost like I was escaping it. The thought that it would be different. Because for me, I grew up in this world that business was always personal. And how do you get away from that? Where do you create that separation? So at the time, it seemed natural. That was going to get me away from that. And I wouldn't have to interact. There would be separation. There would be there wouldn't be that intertwine, if you will.
So then you do corporate, you said 26 years, fourth layoff, and then what?
Then a lot of the work that I was doing in corporate was very focused on more coaching, leading through coaching, because I was leading global programs, working with a lot of medical doctors and really intelligent people doing some really fun and interesting innovation, in particular the last 12 years in healthcare. So a lot of the work that I did was more emotional intelligence coaching and leading, because it was highly ambiguous environments, a lot of investment, and really getting things to market fast to improve the lives of patients and communities. So the shift into that was naturally to coaching, and I was focused on women and working with female executives. But most of my career was spent reporting to and working for male executives. And so there was this tug for that connection still. I loved working with women, but still felt that tug to work with men. And there was parts of the community that I missed, going out and being on my own, that I had, and maybe that was it. But then I went on a really interesting journey that led me to where I am today. So,
and where are you today? We can do the consolidated version. We have 30 minutes.
So I'm in the UK today. I left the US as part of my journey after a divorce, was to really explore what I could do and do differently anywhere else around the world. So it led me on this really interesting path of exploring London, loved it, loved the diversity. And there were a lot of really aha moments that led me to focusing on helping women scale from 1 to 50 million. So back to working with women, and some really pivotal moments in that journey that also helped me realize it wasn't just about helping the women. It was about bringing men along for the ride. It was about creating a space that helped them understand why it is that women do what they do and what they do really well, and how they benefit, how their families benefit, as well as helping women. So really about tapping into these inner strengths of the feminine that every one of us have, regardless of gender.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about that, because we do hear about that. And, as women climb the corporate ladder, they feel that they have to be more like the men. I've got to be tough and this and that. And I'm pretty sure it was Simon Sinek who said, and I saw him speak once, and he said something that he believed that all companies should be led by women because they are more empathetic and they have that killer instinct and killer drive, but they don't lead with that. That women can be very successful and have empathy towards their employees.
Yeah. And so there's that piece of it. And the best way that I love to describe it, because often sports metaphors resonate with most people, is that if you look at, say, some of the greatest basketball players that there are, you have that regiment, that routine, the structure, if you will, that it's required of practicing, of refining your sport, your game, what you do, how you navigate, how you improve yourself. However, when you get to game time, you're in flow. So that the rigidity, the linear, that structure, the schedule is very masculine. It's a masculine trait, and we all need it. We all need a little bit of structure. When you get to flow, if you're in your head, you're in your ego. So that's where you take all the things that you've learned through that regimented process, and you trust your body. And when you're in flow, you are in feminine. You are trusting what you've done. You're trusting your body to do what it needs to do. And you're relying on like you said, your killer instincts, your instincts that are there to get you into that place where you really thrive. And that's where you show up. So that's the best way that I like to describe, in a really easy way, the differences between the masculine and the feminine traits.
Okay, Stacey. So now I want to challenge you and actually ask questions, what you think with your expertise. So if you remember, probably about a year before Ellen retired from her talk show, the buzz came out that, Ellen, it's the worst place to work. And, she's so demanding, and similar things just happened with the Kelly Clarkson show. And when it happened with Ellen, I was actually interviewed quite a bit because of the branding PR side. What does this do for her brand? And I think I gave the journalists not what they were expecting because, and I'm going to go back to your basketball analogy, Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time, worked harder than, anyone. And if you've watched his documentary, he worked hard, but he expected everyone on his team to give to the level that he gave. And that's what I said. How come it's okay for Michael Jordan to expect perfection from his team, but Ellen can't? Ellen's a bitch. God, working for her is terrible. And I really feel that it's a male-female thing, that, a woman can't expect that of her team like a man can. So how does this tie into what you do, and what do you think about that?
Ooh, well, a couple things come to mind as to why. So the first is possibly we as women, when we want to get something done, often our perception is that we have to show up like a man to do it. And we can get really aggressive because not only do we suppress our voice, but we allow others to suppress ours as well. So without knowing the entire context of what happened with Ellen or even with Kelly, that's the first thing that comes to mind. The next is really internalized patriarchy. So, there's this thought that patriarchy is just all about men. We as women contribute to it in ways with which we don't even realize. And so it goes into what are the expectations that we have of somebody else, and or where might somebody be agitating us in a way that doesn't feel good. And so we think that because they're doing that it contributes to them being bad, or them being a bitch, or them being these things, and we start to name call. So how that work fits into what I do is really helping both men and women understand what they can do differently. What are the strengths? So for women, back to my comment about repressing ourselves, how do we start to show up differently in a way that is healthy, in a way that is a more, call it feminine like power? We don't have to be in the face of somebody. We don't have to be screaming to get our voice to be heard. It comes with getting really grounded in our body. And also, there's the empathy piece. And I think for some women, they shift away from that again to get what they want. And so it's a human behavior thing. And that's not just women that do that. That's men that do that. We just assume that it's more okay that men do it than women do it. And then for the men, it's about really understanding that it's okay for them to have empathy. It is okay for them to be, some might call it soft, but it isn't. It's having compassion. Often people really struggle with the word empathy, with the thought that they have to be in somebody else's shoes. And the way that I like to look at it for those that it doesn't resonate with is, how in that situation of whatever it is, how might you like to be treated if you were to reverse the role? And if you can't get there, then what about some compassion? Because there's something to be said about taking a step back, allowing yourself to breathe, and allowing somebody else to then to share what's going on. Because often when we trigger somebody else, and we know it, we can see it, especially as women, we can see it. We start to mirror those things. So how do we lead ourselves to take a step back and say, okay, something's not right here, and allow that person across from us to respond and to give us more feedback? Because when we listen more, we get more. It's not always just about talking. So how do we get to listen more? And we get to learn along the way.
Listening and I have to say, it's my husband who really taught me that trait. He's brilliant. He listens so well, and he does very well in his business because he hears things and gets to the personal side with his potential clients. And anytime you talk about them, not you, it changes everything in business. We know this. So I digress just a little bit.
No, but you're completely right. And you get to understand what's not being said more often than not when you get to listen a little bit more. Yeah.
So the C-suite today, corporations today, can we change that attitude of, the CEO who's there, who's been there maybe 20, 30 years older, can the over 50 male change to adapt to the over 50 female?
Yes. It's finding those that want to change, and B, understand the change, and C, what I'm noticing mostly is they're starting to see it because they either have daughters or their spouse or partner or sister or their friend's partner, wife, somebody in their community has gone through something and it finally clicks. So the short answer to your question is yes, 100%.
what's the first step? So let's say I'm working with somebody who, and we did another interview with someone who had been in the publication space, the magazine space. And we talked a lot about this. And in that space, you had a lot of young women coming up in there. And she really felt that it's the men stirring the pot. Like women really would support one another. But the way that the framework is laid of, corporate America, let's say, corporate anywhere, is, you've got to fight and kick your way to the top and, knock everybody down. But I don't think women are really like that. But it was kind of that if we can keep them fighting amongst each other, and I say fighting with quotation marks, but, willing to step on anybody to get your way up, you can keep that power that the male has at the top, the top of the food chain.
I have this, I guess, metaphor, if you will. There's this perception that women think that they only get one slice of the whole pie. And so they're fighting for that slice when really we get a whole pie. There's nothing stopping us other than we stop ourselves, and truly believe that we teach others how to treat us. So having come from even my own experience in corporate and recognizing all the ways that I would hold myself back. I would dismiss. I would treat myself a certain way, and then would wonder why it was that somebody was treating me that way that I didn't like. And then reflecting on that, I treated myself that way. And the same thing goes for women. So we are just as responsible as the men to do the work, to own our own power and what it is that we do well. And in addition to that, hold each other accountable.
But do you think, and I am not male bashing here by any means, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, so I haven't really seen the corporate side of it. It's just through these interviews, I hear a lot, and especially women our age now who came up. I think things are changing. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and I really see change. I see the opportunities for her are tremendous. But going back to women our age who have experienced it, and like you said, it's me holding myself back. But is that out of fear for what happens if I don't? Will that be accepted by the men that I work with? Again, our generation, this age group, I think it's a little bit different than the ones coming up now.
It is. And personally, honestly, I don't care anymore. Because even on the days that something comes up and I get this little niggle inside of me, something's really bugging me, and I have this moment of, should I not do it because someone will care? They're not for me. They're not for me. And it's taken a lot of work to get to that place as a people pleaser. And it's my responsibility. I mean, it truly is. I think about all the things I missed out on because I held myself back. And then for me to dismiss all the things that I know where I had male allies, that now I understand some of the things that they did and the profound impact on me. I can't care. They aren't for me. And so with that comes grief, because suddenly there's this new identity and this loss of who you thought was meant for you. But there's the other side of that coin that can be really freaking brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. And I love when you said, I don't care anymore. A lot of these interviews, that's the theme. We get to a point, I don't care if I fail, I'll figure something else out.
Yeah.
I'm going to try. I have an idea, and I'm finding, a lot of women are pushed out of corporate in their early 50s. And I used to always joke with my husband as an entrepreneur. I'm like, oh, don't worry. I could get a job. If this gig doesn't work out that I'm doing, don't worry. And now I'm 56. I'm like, I don't know that I could go get that corporate job anymore, but we'll be okay. But a lot of women are saying, screw it. I don't care. I want to try this. And they're setting off on an entrepreneurial journey because they can and they want to. They're doing things with purpose and things that they want to change the world now. They've done, if you raised kids, if you were married, you raised kids, whatever that was, now we get to do us.
And I've had this fire inside of me since I was a little girl. And I thought that fire was corporate, and it wasn't. And it never went away. And so taking the journey that I've taken and getting to where I'm at, it finally feel like there's satisfaction. The fire keeps burning, but now there's a satisfaction. What is really uncomfortable for me now, and it's getting better, is sharing those stories with my two boys who are now in their mid-20s and talking about all the pain and the heartache and what I did that did a disservice to me and what I'm doing now, that if this doesn't work out, it doesn't work out and I'll go figure it out. But I know that the doors continue to open of things that I had never considered. And even on the days when I'm getting stuck, I get to call somebody who is on my team, be it, literal business team or personal team or both, and say I'm having a really freaking hard day, and have them remind me of where I've come from and what I've done. And I get to enjoy it as well. So that was so different than how we were raised. For me, it was grind, be in the business. And I burnt out all the times now that I know that I could barely function, and I was just surviving, and I was on burnout. So trusting my instincts has been the best thing for me. Getting this visa was the fastest thing. It all just fell into place. It couldn't have happened any faster. To the moment that it happened, I'm like, holy crap, what the heck did I just do?
Right.
Like, truly, what did I just do?
But back to if it doesn't work out, you'll be fine.
Something else will happen, right? So
right.
You kind of just keep going. And it's scary, but it's really thrilling. It's a little existential kink. Your greatest fear is also your greatest desire. And so what response are you choosing?
Right. If life's too easy, you wouldn't be where you are today if you didn't have the obstacles and you have to learn. And it's fun having my kids sound about the same age, watching them starting to figure things out, seeing things, seeing how connections work, seeing how the world works, how the adulting world really is.
Right. Well, and they get to do it their way. So as long as we get to watch them a little bit and not say too much and let them kind of figure it out, and just keep reminding them to stay as true to themselves as they are in this moment. I think that's a beautiful guidance that I know I didn't get for no reason other than it was more about surviving for me. And with my parents now, the different conversations I get to have with them. So it's definitely, I feel sandwiched in the middle of having some of those conversations and a different perspective on what it was to feel like just surviving.
And now, and I think that our kids do ask questions and they are more involved, and there's more teamwork now than there was. I feel like, and I did work a little bit like right after college before I kind of started my entrepreneurial journey, but you were kind of siloed. You had your job, Christina, this is what you do. And there wasn't a lot of team building, teamwork where you do have men and women who hopefully can figure out that you get the structure and then you have the flow. And if you guys can work together, you'll change the world. I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Stacy. It was so great having you. We end every episode with the same 2 questions.
Yeah.
So what is your greatest accomplishment since you've turned 50?
My greatest accomplishment since I've turned 50. Being able to say out loud how much I love myself.
I love that. We have another episode with Christine Howard, and she talks about, it's called mirroring, where you literally look in the mirror and until you get comfortable with it. And yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's a big step.
Yeah.
And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
likely working from a more sunny place, more days out of the year, and doing something in the capacity with which I'm doing now, be it writing a book about this adventure, be it my own podcast about this adventure, be around the world speaking on this. It's something related to this in a greater capacity to continue spreading, continue expanding.
And it's a message that needs to be spread. Yeah. It really does. Because I think we can really, with that, not we, you, can, by sharing this, can really change the world.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.